Yeah, Ali, it's very interesting because there is a clear focus here in New Orleans, not only here along the French Quarter and Bourbon Street, but at a home that was rented by the suspect just prior to the attack and that caught fire. There was a fire at that Airbnb after the attack. So they're trying to piece together exactly what that entails and what may have happened in that home. They believe there may have been some setup done there, some work on some of these incendiary devices before they were placed in the French Quarter. But the focus is also on the home of the suspect in Houston, where overnight we learned that federal agents found bomb-making materials inside that home. So clearly they are taking a closer look there and, again, trying to piece together exactly how and why all of this happened. It comes as this city remains on lockdown. You can see the security behind me, and it's not only here in the French Quarter, Alley, but it's across the city as well. And a lot of people here now coming to the realization that this may be their future for quite some time, that they may see this stepped up security presence for at least a couple of months here, because remember, they've got Mardi Gras coming up. They've also got the Super Bowl. It's going to be hosted here as well. And so the work on security is expected to continue, and it's expected to be a real presence, a visible presence for an extended period of time here.
Jay, I'm a Tulane graduate. I lived in New Orleans for many years. Seeing Bourbon Street behind you, as quiet as it is absolutely stunning. You're right to point out that it reopened to the public yesterday, but of course there are still questions about how this attack unfolded, specifically around the security concerns. And you're right to forecast what's coming next. I mean, Mardi Gras is an event that takes place throughout the city of New Orleans. Of course, you have the Super Bowl as well. Talk about the security concerns that exist now and how they're looking to the future.
Yeah, and look, Allie, you know this city. I grew up in Louisiana. I've spent a lot of time here as well. And the only time I've seen Bourbon Street this empty is after Katrina, a natural disaster. And now it is empty again. And we've seen a few people out and about, but not the revelry that you would expect, that you normally see really at all hours on Bourbon Street. And so what we know about the security moving forward is that they have worked on a plan and have been working on a plan, obviously, for the Super Bowl, which comes up first. And they've now extended that security perimeter around the Superdome where the game will be played. It's stretched out a bit. No vehicles will be allowed in, and they're going to have a really strong show of force around that stadium. But it stretches into this area of the French Quarter. It's only about a mile away, and there's a lot of walking in between the two. And so on every corner you're seeing officers right now, and not only New Orleans police, not only state police, but federal agents, including Homeland Security officers in full gear. And I think that's going to continue here for quite some time, because this city wants to send a message. As you know, it's a city that's based on celebrations. There are three big events here every year. It is Mardi Gras. It's the Sugar Bowl, which went off last night after being delayed for a day. And it's Jazz Fest, which is a couple of weeks of concerts. And so for this city to continue and to come back, which they have vowed to do, and not let terror win, as you hear so many say here, they've got to make people feel secure coming into New Orleans. And so that's the message that they are trying to portray. And with these new plans of that increased perimeter around the Superdome and here in the French Quarter, stepped up visible security, they believe that will do the job.
If it's one thing we know, it's the resilience of the amazing people in this wonderful city. Our heart is with all of them. NBC's Jay Gray, live from New Orleans. Thank you for your reporting. President-elect Trump and his allies, meanwhile, continue to falsely imply that the attack in New Orleans was the result of insufficient border security, despite the fact that we've learned the attacker was a U.S. citizen born and raised in Texas. Trump has not directly acknowledged the attack since Wednesday, but in several social media posts yesterday, he criticized the Biden administration and Democrats for open border policies that he claims have led to radical Islamic terrorism. And during an interview on Fox News yesterday, House Speaker Mike Johnson also falsely suggested the New Orleans attack had something to do with the border.
The Biden administration has been completely derelict in its duty. The congressional Republicans, we here in the House and the Senate, have repeatedly asked the DHS under the Biden administration about the correlation, the obvious concern about terrorism and the wide open border. The idea that dangerous people were coming here in droves and setting up potentially terrorist cells around the country. We have been ringing the alarms.
Meanwhile, authorities have now identified the man who died in the Tesla Cybertruck explosion outside of the Trump International Hotel in Las Vegas. Officials said that identification belonging to a decorated U.S. Army soldier was found at the scene. The 37-year-old was an active duty master sergeant in the U.S. Army Special Forces and resident of Colorado Springs. He was initially believed to have died in the explosion, but investigators now believe he died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound prior to the blast. Officials say a military ID, passport, and credit cards were found at the scene, as well as 2 handguns. Right now, it's unclear how the explosive device in the vehicle was detonated. Authorities have stated that they had not found any association between the Las Vegas event and the attack that took place in New Orleans. Investigators are still working to determine a motive. Joining us now is White House reporter for Bloomberg, Akayla Gardner. Akayla, there are several major events happening in the next few weeks. You've got the inauguration, you've got President Carter's funeral. How are these attacks impacting security measures for upcoming events? Got to imagine it's all ratcheting up.
Well, it's a huge question because Americans right now are still frankly concerned about what the current threat environment is after we have seen these 2 incidents in Las Vegas and New Orleans. But specifically here in Washington, the Secret Service is preparing for this state funeral of Jimmy Carter coming up. You also have the certification of the election coming up. We all know what happened in January 6, 2021. And of course, the inauguration. And I think that is a huge thing on people's minds right now because that Cybertruck was outside that Trump hotel. We still don't know the motive, as you said, of why that was particularly there. But they're designating all these the highest security events, and they're saying that they're taking into account the ever-changing environment when it comes to security. And those events particularly give them more resources when it comes to contacting local and state officials. And so they're saying they're feeling confident going into those. But this is an agency that has had a lot of scrutiny. We all saw what happened over the last year after those 2 assassination attempts against Donald Trump. So they're going to have a lot of scrutiny on them in the months ahead.
Yeah, and I think it's important for us to point out, too, before January 6, 2021, Secret Service wasn't involved with certification of the election security. This is sort of a day that just went off, typically without much of fanfare or eyes on it at all. So the fact that it has such an escalated security posture very much speaks to where we are. I think the other piece of this, too, is the misinformation, specifically around the suspect in New Orleans from the president-elect and his allies. We know both were American citizens in this case, but Trump and his allies are peddling a narrative about this being a situation of lax border security.
Yeah.
Where is that coming from? And is this what we have to look forward to with Trump coming back to the White House, just sort of throwing out things that are just factually, demonstrably false?
I think that's a key question is where is it coming from? And it's really coming from some early reports that turned out to not be accurate, that the suspect, particularly in New Orleans, had crossed the border. That quickly was shot down. We know he was born here. Officials believe that he was radicalized in the U.S., living here. But it shows that Donald Trump, this is going to be a key priority for him. He is going to look for every avenue to talk about immigration, to push his plan to do this mass deportations. We know that his officials plan to use family deportation centers. They still have not really answered direct questions about will they reinstate this family child separation policy. So it definitely shows they're going to use every chance that they can get. And it also says they're going to extend it to even ideology. His close advisor, Stephen Miller, tweeted yesterday that he believes Islamic terrorism is an import. So it shows that this is really a vast view of how they view immigration and people frankly, coming into our country.
Yeah, it makes sense that they're talking about the border from a policy perspective, but when it clearly doesn't apply and it adds to the swirl of misinformation, the immediate thing I think about is during the hurricanes that we saw just a few months ago, saying that things were happening on the ground that weren't exactly happening. There are real-life ramifications for that. Akayla Gardner, thank you for staying on this for us. Still ahead, the FBI shares new details about the person who planted pipe bombs in Washington, D.C. ahead of the January 6th attack on the Capitol. We'll dig into that new information. Plus, President Biden honors the leaders of the January 6th Select Committee with one of the nation's highest civilian honors. Those stories and a check on sports and the weather when we come right back.
Download the MSNBC app now at msnbc.com/app.
DSW's semi-annual sale is back, and it's bigger than ever. Save 50% on all clearance styles at your DSW store for a limited time. Plus, find even more great savings at DSW.com. Don't sleep on these seriously amazing deals. Score super low prices on sneakers, boots, and more for the entire family when you shop the DSW semi-annual sale. Save today at your DSW store or DSW.com. Exclusions apply.
My goal weight is feeling healthy.
Running a 5K.
Loving how I feel in my clothes. Hers can help you achieve your goals through a range of personalized weight loss treatments, including GLP-1 injections and support for nutrition, hydration, sleep, and movement. Go for your goals with Hers. GLP-1 starting at $165 per month. Begin your weight loss journey at forhers.com.
I'm Livy Dunn, All-American gymnast and Viore athlete. When you travel and train as much as I do, you find happiness where you are. On the mat or on the sand, movement and comfort are essential. That's why I live in Performance Joggers by Viore. Made from dream knit fabric that's made of 89% recycled materials, effortlessly soft and made to move as much as I do. My happiness starts here, in the softest joggers on the planet.
We know there's not enough time in the day. That's why at Sprouts Farmers Market, we make every interaction feel simple. A sense of ease in making healthy and delicious choices, even on the busiest days. Because Sprouts gathers the freshest produce and most delicious snacks for your dietary needs. No matter how you shop, discover that Sprouts feeling. In-store, pick-up, delivery. Discover the difference. Sprouts Farmers Market. When you're hungry for better-for-you choices, feed the feeling. Shop now at Sprouts.com or the Sprouts app.
Each week on my podcast, I'm joined by uniquely qualified guests who help me take a big picture look at the issues, like Representative Jasmine Crockett, late night host Seth Meyers, former Attorney General Eric Holder, and many more. Why is this happening? Listen now.
The FBI is renewing efforts to track down a suspect who placed pipe bombs near both the Republican and Democratic National Committee headquarters in Washington nearly 4 years ago. The announcement comes after congressional Republicans released a report on the incident, sharing frustration over the fact that the FBI had not yet identified a suspect. Truly stunning. The department released new video of the suspect, saying they still have no leads and have not determined a motive for the crimes. They estimate the person to be 5 feet 7 inches tall, and a reward of up to $500,000 is available for information leading to an arrest. In an interview with NBC News, Assistant Director in charge of the FBI Washington Field Office said in the past 4 years, agents, analysts, and data scientists have visited more than 1,200 residences and businesses, conducted more than 1,000 interviews, reviewed approximately 39,000 videos, and assessed more than 600 tips in the case. President Biden awarded the 2 leaders of the January 6th Select Committee with Presidential Citizens Medals. At a White House ceremony yesterday, the medal is the second highest award a civilian can earn in the United States.
And to the highest standard set by women and men we celebrate here today. You know, for the final time as president, I have the privilege of bestowing the Presidential Citizens Medal.